The left attacking the White House for arresting Nicolas Maduro, the terrorist dictator, and attacking the White House for arresting illegal aliens, while the right continues to support a president who's doing exactly what he campaigned on doing. Our next guest spent the weekend analyzing the divide in America and why this is happening with his weekly newsletter, which we look at every single weekend. Joining us now for more, the founder of the Zoose Political Index, polling expert, Patrick Allocco. Patrick, great to see you. The Maduro arrest, which Americans supported overwhelmingly, became clear when they started taking a look at polls. Take a look at this.
Pre-ousting, what you saw was the clear plurality of Americans opposed at 47%, just 21% support. Come over to this side of the screen. After the ousting, look at that. The support through the roof. Now we're talking about 37%, well within the margin of error right here of the opposition, 38%.
All right, so this new Ipsos poll found that only 33% of Americans, well, it is the majority, 33% approved the raid, but only 11%, Patrick, of Democrats approved arresting Nicolas Maduro, which is a pretty stunning number. How does that make any sense after Joe Biden himself put a $25 million bounty on Nicolas Maduro's head? Can you explain that?
Rob, you said it in the lead-in, that one thing that we confirmed last week is that Democrats and Republicans live in two very different Americas, that there is nothing that this president can do to elicit a positive response, anything that would be from the left that might say this was a win for America.
Okay, we also saw this clear and growing divide, Patrick, between the left and the right after the shooting of Renee Good last week. Take a look.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty.
The president stands with ICE. I stand with ICE. We stand with all of our law enforcement officers.
All right, this is important. I'm going to point this out. So before the 2024 election, almost every poll in the country, the top issues among them, number 2, immigration, crime was also in the top 5. Every single poll. So how do you think ICE arrests are going to impact the midterms? Because Donald Trump is doing exactly what, again, immigration, 17%, exactly what Americans elected him to do.
That's correct, Rob. What the protests are doing from the arrests are stirring the pot. And the one thing Democrats know well is that anger, frustration, and dissatisfaction are better motivators for getting out the vote than complacency. And the one thing that Republicans should take note of is complacency, and that the Trump supporter going into the midterms doesn't just sit back and say, we've got Trump for another 2 years. We don't care what happens in Congress, because anger, frustration, and dissatisfaction votes.
All right, let me ask you about the Senate. So late last week, they voted to require Donald Trump to seek congressional approval to carry out any future military operations, similar to what we saw in Venezuela. 5 Republicans joined the Democrats to vote for this. One of them was Susan Collins, who's on the ballot in November. Donald Trump posted this on social media, basically saying that Susan Collins and everybody else who voted for this should never be elected to office again. Does that hurt Susan Collins in Maine come next November?
Susan Collins' secret sauce is her independence and her independence among independent voters. So putting a little distance between herself and Donald Trump is not necessarily a bad thing for her. In this 119th Congress, she's voted 96% of the time with Donald Trump. In the first term, she voted 67% of the time, but that was the most she had voted with any president.
Okay.
So I think for her, a little distance is not a bad thing.
Good point. Donald Trump's first term, the MAGA voting bloc accounted for like a 36% approval rating. Donald Trump's approval rating right now, almost 44%, so 43.8. This is the Real Clear Politics average. Important to note, this is 10 points higher than Joe Biden's last approval rating when he left office. He was at 34%. Do you buy these numbers?
Well, not necessarily, because first of all, Real Clear Politics, a great at-a-glance tool, but it groups likely voters with all adults polls. So you can have a poll at 36% and a likely voter up to 50%. He's actually in that range right now. If you're looking at Rasmussen and Morning Consult, he's in that 45 to 47% belt that we always talk about.
All right, Patrick Allocco, I love the newsletter. Great to have you back on. We'll do it again next Monday. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.